evangelical writer who goes by the name Jim Wallace, who refers to America's original sin as racism and white supremacy. I would argue that that sin has festered into a virus that is now replicating in the cells of our country, in the people that constitute our nation. One of the things that upsets me the most about having a cold is the fact that the cause of my discomfort, the illness itself, can't be treated. I'm instead forced to drink nasty tasting elixirs that are directed merely at treating those symptoms, not the actual cold. You see, the result is that while I may feel slightly better the next day or for the night, my body is still at war with the virus inside me. The virus is still replicating, and the cause of my pain is actually minimally affected. I was helping my daughter go over some cause and effect assignments because, as we all know, we're doing school from home. And during that virtual learning period, I was brought back to a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King, and I applied it to the realities of social unrest that exist today. And it is that a riot is the language of the unheard. In an effort to try and keep this entire video as apolitical as possible, I'm merely going to note the fact that in the creation of this video, I was overwhelmed during my recent perusal of some of the videos from the Republican National Convention, particularly the interesting juxtaposition of the constant complaints about a possible future without the existence of laws, while showing video examples that were of the current situation. This is to say that denoting a possibility of future civil unrest while showing what that would look like in your current situation with current videos seems to be disingenuous at best, if not purposefully deceitful and misleading in reality. What we need today, in reality, is a better understanding that our current social situation is a symptom, and what we truly need to fix is the problem. The illness is what we need to treat. In a country where the LAPD chief says that the protesters are just as responsible for the death of George Floyd as the people, the police officers, who stood on his neck, we have a serious issue with cause and effect. We seem to lack an ability to understand symptoms versus illness. Squashing symptoms is just like taking NyQuil for a cold and refusing to eat right, to get the rest, to do the other things you need to get rid of the actual cold. We need to get rid of the cold, people. We need to stop treating symptoms like they're the problem. The conversation I had earlier this week, I was asked a rather loaded question, and it went something like this. Surely you don't support all of the looting and destruction of property that's going on in the United States, do you? My response was rather interesting for the person who asked the question, I'm sure, and equally as loaded. And it went something like this. No matter how much I love my Instapot from Target, and I truly do, it pales in comparison to the loss of life, limb, and paralysis that people are undergoing, which is causing the rioting. You see, there is no moral equivalency between the destruction of property and the destruction of people. The destruction of property is bad, but if the cause of that destruction of property is bad as the destruction of life, that destruction of life is decidedly worse. It always will be. You cannot equivocate on this because, if not just from a practical standpoint, that the loss of property incites things like insurance and people being able to replace items and not replace lives, it just morally is not equivalent. It's ridiculous to assert such, and people who do so either do it disingenuously in essence or just aren't intelligent individuals. You see, it seems that for a good number of people, the response to social unrest is to merely put it down, to assuage the symptoms, quite like the individual who decides that fixing your cold is as simple as taking Dayquil. That does not cure you. Or the person who hasn't slept in 2 days and says, oh, I'll just drink some coffee. That doesn't fix the problem. or the person who is dying of lung cancer who says, you know what, I just need to breathe deeper. It's equally as idiotic. And I truly understand why we are ignoring the causes of our social ills. It's easier, and it's something our country has done since its inception. We stole land from Native inhabitants and relegated them to reservations. And then when they reacted to what was an invasion, we used advanced weapons of warfare to squash their uprisings without ever considering the fact that we were the ones who caused it. Tell black men, if you want to succeed, get out of the hood without ever taking responsibility for the active redlining, which has caused poor minority communities, for the continued actions of our current Housing and Urban Development Secretary, Ben Carson, who has weakened the Fair Housing Act, making it harder for disenfranchised persons or entities to make disparate impact claims. We tell minorities, if you want to change, then vote, while ignoring the 1994 crime bill or the 1996 push to privatize prisons, allowing them to set quotas mixed with a disproportionate push of policing in urban areas and minority communities that have been filled because of the aforementioned redlining, that would eventually lead to 1 in 3 black men either being in jail or having been in jail, effectively destroying the male black voting bloc by 1/3. Now we push the idea of law and order when our agents of law have been witnessed executing, shooting, beating, and paralyzing people because, in no small part, they have been subconsciously taught that black men are prone to criminalistic behavior and are threatening because of their appearance. This is not a problem of politics. It is a problem of policy. And more importantly, it is a problem of willful ignorance. We have reached a point where treating symptoms is no longer an acceptable recourse for the viruses sown into our social body. And while arguably I've probably given the most succinct argument for our need in our society to look to a higher power outside of government, mainly God, noting the disparities that may require divine intervention, I think I have a more appropriate medicine if we're willing to take it. The medicine is bitter. It's not going to go down easy. And it's not going to be smooth. But nothing worth doing has ever been easy. What we need is more than just change at the top. What we need is a total overhaul of the system. And we are on the precipice of it. As I've said before, the problems are not a bug in the system. They are the feature of the system. We need to keep showing up in the streets until our needs for change, equality, and justice are met. Until the virus is beaten back, until the social fabric is healed. We cannot stop. The hardest part of this is not taking our foot off the gas. I'll see you in the streets. And don't forget, I love you all. Please like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I hope to bring you videos on at least a weekly basis as we go through several changes in our society, in our culture, in our country. Hopefully my videos will give you a unique perspective and possibly some catharsis. Remember, I love you all.